What happens when Hollywood's most enigmatic humanitarian sits across from one of daytime television's sharpest voices, and the smiles vanish in real time? What happens when a conversation meant to inspire suddenly turns into a quiet battlefield of words, pauses, and piercing eye contact? Before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to Prime Talk, hit like, and comment right now, because moments like this don't just happen, they erupt. The studio lights on the view burned brighter than usual that morning, reflecting off the polished table like a mirror of calm that wouldn't last. Angelina Jolie walked onto the set with her signature grace, dressed in understated black, her posture controlled, her expression composed. But anyone watching closely could sense the armor beneath the elegance. She wasn't just a movie star today. She was a mother, a humanitarian, a woman who had been scrutinized, misunderstood, and judged for decades. The applause swelled as she took her seat, a warm welcome rolling through the audience. Angelina smiled, nodded, thanked them softly. But her eyes, those famous eyes, were scanning the table already. Sunny Hostin sat across from her, notes neatly stacked, expression polite yet firm. Sunny wasn't smiling the way she usually did when welcoming a guest. There was something sharper in her gaze, something deliberate. This wasn't going to be a soft interview. The audience felt it before a single word was spoken, that subtle shift in energy when pleasantries are just a formality. The conversation began smoothly. Angelina spoke about her latest humanitarian work, her voice calm, almost soothing. She described refugee camps, displaced families, children whose lives had been fractured by war. The room grew quiet as she spoke, the audience leaning in, hanging on every word. Even Sunny nodded along at first, offering brief affirmations. But then, the air changed. Sunny leaned forward slightly, tapping her pen once against her notes. "Angelina," she said, her tone still measured but unmistakably firm. "You're known worldwide for advocating for human rights. But some critics say your activism sometimes overshadows your accountability, especially when it comes to your personal life." There it was, the first strike. A faint murmur rippled through the audience. Angelina blinked once. Just once. Her smile didn't disappear, but it tightened, like a door quietly locking. Inside, something shifted. Years of headlines flashed behind her eyes. Divorces dissected, motherhood questioned, motives doubted. "My personal life," Angelina replied carefully, "has never been a performance. It's been a journey, a very human one." Sunny didn't back down. "But when you speak about justice and responsibility," she continued, "don't you think the public has a right to ask whether those values are consistently reflected in all aspects of your life?" The camera cut to Angelina's face. For a split second, the world saw something raw, surprise, then resolve. She straightened in her chair, folding her hands together, grounding herself. "I think," she said slowly, choosing each word like a step across thin ice, "that we often confuse visibility with permission. Just because my life is public doesn't mean it's open for moral judgment without context." The audience erupted into applause, some gasps mixed in. Whoopi Goldberg raised her eyebrows, sensing the shift. Joy Behar leaned back, watching closely. Sunny, however, remained steady. "But context matters," Sunny pressed. "And when young women look up to you, when you're positioned as a moral voice." Angelina lifted her hand gently, not aggressive, but unmistakably firm. "Sunny," she interrupted, her voice still calm but now edged with steel. "Young women don't need me to be perfect. They need me to be honest. And honesty includes struggle, mistakes, and growth." The tension thickened. You could almost hear the studio air conditioning hum as the audience fell silent again. Angelina's heart was pounding now, though her face betrayed nothing. She had walked into war zones with less tension than this table. Sunny exhaled, lips pressing together. "So you're saying criticism is unfair?" "I'm saying," Angelina replied, leaning forward now, meeting Sunny's eyes directly, "that criticism without compassion becomes performance. And I didn't come here to perform my pain." That line hit hard. A wave of reaction swept through the crowd, applause, shocked whispers, a few audible wows. The camera cut to Sunny, who paused for the first time, clearly recalibrating. This wasn't going the way she'd planned. Inside Angelina's mind, memories surged, interviews where she'd been cornered, headlines that reduced her to a caricature. She had promised herself long ago that she would no longer shrink to make others comfortable. "Not today. Not here." Sunny finally responded, her voice quieter now but still firm. "I respect that," she said, though the tension hadn't fully eased. But transparency invites questions. Angelina nodded slowly. And strength, she said, is knowing which questions deserve answers and which ones deserve boundaries. The studio erupted again. Even some of the hosts shifted in their seats, the atmosphere charged, electric. This was no longer a standard celebrity interview. This was a reckoning, spoken softly, but felt loudly. Angelina leaned back, inhaling deeply, her composure intact but her emotions clearly stirred. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't lashed out. But she had drawn a line, and everyone in that room knew it. The cameras kept rolling. Social media was already buzzing. Producers exchanged glances backstage. Something unforgettable was unfolding, and it was only just beginning. The silence that followed felt heavier than the applause that came before it, like the studio itself was holding its breath. Angelina Jolie sat perfectly still, her hands resting lightly on the table, her expression composed but alert. She could feel the eyes on her, from the hosts, from the audience, from millions watching at home. This wasn't just a conversation anymore. It was a test of endurance, of control, of who would blink first. Sunny Hostin glanced down at her notes, then back up, her jaw tightening just enough for the cameras to catch it. She wasn't finished. Not even close. I want to shift this slightly, Sunny said, her voice smooth but edged with insistence. You often speak about women reclaiming their voices, about empowerment. Yet some would argue that the narratives around your relationships, particularly your divorces, have left more confusion than clarity. How do you reconcile that? A low gasp rippled through the audience. Someone in the front row shook their head. Angelina felt it like a physical weight pressing against her chest. For years, she had protected her children from these questions, from the constant rehashing of wounds that never truly healed. She had prepared for this possibility, told herself she would remain calm. Still, the sting was sharp. She inhaled slowly, eyes lowering for a brief moment before lifting again. I reconcile it, she said quietly, by remembering that my children are not headlines. And my silence on certain matters is not confusion, it's protection. Sunny leaned back slightly, crossing her arms. But when silence leaves room for speculation. Speculation thrives regardless. Angelina cut in, her voice firmer now, though still controlled. Especially when a woman refuses to narrate her trauma for public consumption. The audience broke into applause again, louder this time. Whoopi nodded slowly, lips pressed together in approval. Joy glanced towards Sunny, sensing the growing imbalance. But Sunny held her ground. Do you think, Sunny asked, tilting her head, that sometimes choosing not to speak allows others to define the story for you? Angelina's eyes flashed, not with anger, but with resolve. I think, she replied, that not every story belongs to the public. And I refuse to teach my daughters that they owe the world an explanation for surviving. That was the moment the room shifted. The applause was immediate, thunderous. Some audience members rose to their feet before quickly sitting back down, realizing this wasn't the end. Angelina's pulse raced, but her posture remained steady. She felt something unlock inside her, a quiet strength born of years spent holding the line. Sunny waited for the noise to die down, then spoke again, her tone noticeably cooler. Let's talk about accountability, she said. When powerful figures speak about justice, shouldn't they expect to be questioned about their own choices? Angelina turned fully toward her now, her body language open but unyielding. Accountability, she said, is not public confession. It's private responsibility. I live with my choices every day, far more intimately than any headline ever could. A murmur of agreement spread through the audience. The camera cut to Whoopi, who raised her hands slightly as if to calm the growing energy. But Sunny wasn't ready to let it rest. You're asking for boundaries, Sunny pressed, on a show built on open dialogue. Angelina nodded. And I'm honoring the very dialogue you're defending, she replied. Because real conversation includes listening, not just probing. For a split second, Sunny hesitated. The pause was subtle, but it was there. The audience noticed. Social media would later replay that moment again and again, slowing it down, analyzing every micro-expression. Inside Angelina's mind, emotions surged, anger, yes, but also sadness. She hadn't come to fight. She had come to speak about displaced families, about global crises. Yet here she was, defending the right to be human. Sunny finally spoke, her voice quieter now. I hear you, she said. But viewers at home may still feel conflicted. Angelina's gaze softened slightly. Conflict, she said gently, is where growth begins. Discomfort doesn't mean harm. Sometimes it means truth. The audience applauded once more, but this time the reaction was mixed, supportive claps alongside uneasy silence. The divide was forming, clear and unavoidable. Some viewers leaned toward Sunny's insistence on accountability. Others felt Angelina's words resonate deep in their bones. Joy Behar cleared her throat, attempting to lighten the mood. "Well," she said with a half smile, "this is definitely not a boring morning." A few nervous laughs broke out, but the tension lingered like static in the air. Angelina offered a small smile, appreciative but distant. Sunny exhaled, glancing briefly toward the producers off camera, as if gauging how far she could still push. And then she did. "Angelina," Sunny said, leaning forward once more, "do you believe the public sometimes elevates you beyond reproach?" Angelina's expression hardened, not in anger, but in clarity. "I believe," she said slowly, "that the public often forgets celebrities are mirrors, not monuments. We reflect their hopes, their contradictions. But we are not immune to being human." A hush fell over the studio. The weight of her words settled deeply. Even Sunny seemed momentarily disarmed. The cameras kept rolling. The audience waited. And somewhere beyond the studio walls, the internet was already choosing sides, because this confrontation was far from over. The air inside the studio felt charged now, as if every breath carried electricity. Angelina Jolie could sense it, the way the audience shifted in their seats, the way the hosts leaned forward just a fraction more than before. This was the point of no return. Conversations like this didn't ease back into comfort. They either exploded or exposed something raw. Sunny Hostin adjusted her posture, uncrossing her arms, her voice measured but unwavering. "Angelina," she said, "you've spoken about being a voice for the voiceless. But there are people who feel that when celebrities step into political or humanitarian spaces, they sometimes drown out the very voices they claim to amplify." A ripple of tension swept through the crowd. This wasn't just personal anymore. This was ideological. Angelina's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She had heard this argument before, often from those who had never set foot in the places she had, never looked into the eyes of people who had nothing left but hope. She paused, letting the silence stretch, forcing everyone to sit inside it. "I don't speak instead of anyone," she finally said. "I speak with them. And when I'm invited to speak, it's because someone without access asked me to carry their story further than they could." Sunny tilted her head. "But power changes dynamics," she replied. "How do you ensure you're not centering yourself?" Angelina leaned forward slightly, her elbows resting on the table now, her voice lower, more intimate. "By listening more than I talk. By showing up when the cameras are gone. By staying long after the applause fades." The audience murmured in agreement, some nodding, others skeptical. The divide was sharper now. The studio no longer felt unified. It felt split down the middle. Sunny's eyes narrowed just a bit. "Yet your name often becomes the headline," she said. "Not the cause." Angelina exhaled, a slow, controlled breath. "That's not something I control," she replied. "But I can control whether I keep going anyway. And I do." A few people in the audience clapped instinctively, then stopped, unsure whether to cheer or wait. The tension was unbearable and addictive. Whoopi leaned in at last, her voice calm but authoritative. "Let's acknowledge something here," she said. "This is a tough conversation, and maybe it needs to be." Angelina nodded respectfully toward Whoopi, but her eyes never left Sunny. There was something unfinished between them. Sunny pressed on. "You've been called brave," she said. "You've been called untouchable. Do you think that kind of reverence shields you from criticism?" Angelina's lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. "Reverence is an illusion," she said. "And shields crack. I've never been protected from criticism. I've just learned how to stand inside it without breaking." That line landed hard. The audience erupted, applause mixed with audible gasps. Someone shouted, "Tell her," before being quickly hushed. The energy spiked, the producers likely scrambling behind the scenes. Sunny hesitated, then asked the question that had clearly been waiting all morning. "Do you think," she said carefully, "that your pain has ever been used, consciously or not, as part of your public image?" Angelina froze for a fraction of a second. It was barely noticeable, but it was real. Pain. That word cracked something open. Her voice, when she spoke, was softer now. "Pain isn't branding," she said. "It's survival. And if sharing parts of it helps someone else feel less alone, then I accept that cost. But I've never used it. I've lived it." The audience went completely silent. No applause. No murmurs. Just stillness. Sunny swallowed. For the first time, her confidence seemed shaken. "I appreciate your honesty," she said quietly. Angelina nodded, but didn't smile. "Honesty isn't comfortable," she replied. "It's necessary." Joy Behar tried again to ease the atmosphere. "Well," she said, attempting a laugh, "we did say this was going to be a conversation." A few people chuckled, but it didn't stick. The tension lingered, heavier than before. Sunny leaned back, her voice steadier now but no less serious. "Some viewers might say this feels defensive." Angelina met her gaze without hesitation. "Defensiveness is reaction," she said. "What you're seeing is boundaries, and women are often punished for having them." That was it. The studio erupted. Applause thundered, louder than anything before. Some audience members stood. Others clapped while shaking their heads, conflicted but engaged. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the intensity etched on Angelina's face, the calm after a storm, the strength forged in fire. Sunny nodded slowly, absorbing the moment. "I think," she said, choosing her words carefully now, "this conversation has struck a nerve." Angelina leaned back in her chair, finally allowing herself a small exhale. "It should," she said, "because nerves remind us we're alive." The segment was nearing its end, but no one in that studio believed the story was close to finished. Outside those walls, the fallout was already forming, clips being cut, opinions being typed, sides being chosen. And in that charged silence between questions, it was clear, this wasn't just television anymore. It was a moment that would echo far beyond the set. The moment the cameras cut to commercial, the studio exhaled, but the tension didn't disappear. It lingered like smoke after a fire, curling into every corner of the room. Angelina Jolie remained seated, hands folded, gaze distant for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Around her, producers moved quickly, whispers slicing through the air. The audience buzzed, half stunned, half electrified, as if they'd just witnessed something they weren't sure they were supposed to see. When the red light blinked back on, there was a different energy entirely. Not hostile. Not friendly. Charged. Alive. Sunny Hostin straightened her notes, then looked up, not as an interrogator now, but as someone recalibrating in real time. "We're back," she said, her voice steady, though softer than before. "And I think it's fair to say this conversation has touched something deeper than we expected." Angelina nodded once, acknowledging the shift without claiming victory. She had learned long ago that truth didn't need triumph. It needed space. Whoopi leaned in, eyes thoughtful. "What I'm seeing," she said, "is a woman refusing to be flattened by expectations. And that's not easy to do on live television." A ripple of applause moved through the audience, more measured now, reflective. Angelina offered a grateful glance, but said nothing. The quiet was doing the work for her. Sunny took a breath. "Angelina," she said, "I want to be clear. Tough questions come from a place of responsibility to viewers. But so does listening. And I think people at home have heard you today." Angelina finally spoke again, her voice calm, resolute. "That's all I ever hoped for," she said. "To be heard, not agreed with. Dialogue doesn't require consensus. It requires courage." The cameras caught Sunny's small nod. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a concession. It was acknowledgement. And sometimes, that mattered more. As the segment wrapped, the applause returned, full, sustained, complicated. Some faces glowed with admiration. Others carried uncertainty. But no one looked bored. No one looked untouched. Backstage, the reality of what had just happened hit fast. Phones lit up like fireworks. Assistants whispered about trending clips. A producer mouthed the words, "This is blowing up," as if stunned by the speed of it all. Within minutes, short excerpts flooded social media. Angelina's calm stare, her measured words, Sunny's pointed questions slowed down and dissected frame by frame. On X, hashtags ignited. #Angelina on The View climbed rapidly. So did #boundaries are strength and #Sunny vs Angelina. Opinions split sharply. Some praised Sunny for asking what others wouldn't. Others hailed Angelina's composure as masterful, her restraint as powerful as any outburst. Commentators weighed in before the episode even finished airing on the West Coast. "This is what daytime television should be," one post read. Another shot back, "Accountability isn't an attack." A third went viral with a simple line clipped from the show, "Women are often punished for having boundaries." Angelina left the building quietly, avoiding the main exit. In the car, the city blurred past her window. She closed her eyes for a moment, not from exhaustion, but release. She hadn't planned to reveal anything. She hadn't raised her voice. And yet, something essential had been said. Sunny, meanwhile, returned to her dressing room, the weight of the exchange settling in. She scrolled through reactions, paused, reread a few messages. This wasn't a win or a loss. It was a moment, one that would be debated, analyzed, remembered. And she knew it. By evening, entertainment shows led with the clip. Headlines clashed just like the opinions. Angelina Jolie shuts down Sunny Hostin. Sunny Hostin holds Angelina Jolie accountable. A clash that redefined daytime TV. Each outlet chose its angle. Each viewer chose a side. But beneath the noise, something quieter moved through the culture, a recognition. That strength didn't always shout. That confrontation didn't require cruelty. That a woman could draw a line on live television and refuse to apologize for it. Late-night hosts joked about it. Think pieces bloomed overnight. Psychologists weighed in on boundaries. Activists debated celebrity advocacy. And viewers, millions of them, replayed the moment where Angelina paused, breathed, and spoke with clarity instead of rage. That pause became the symbol. Not the question. Not the challenge. The pause. Because in that silence, people saw themselves, caught between expectation and truth, between being watched and being whole. And that's why this moment didn't fade when the episode ended. It stayed. It echoed. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Was Angelina right to push back, or was Sunny right to press harder? Did this conversation empower, or divide? Drop your opinion in the comments. I'm reading every one. And if you want more explosive, cinematic, behind-the-moment stories like this, make sure you subscribe to Prime Talk right now. Hit that button, stay with us, and don't miss the next story that everyone will be talking about.